As Her Majesty the Queen's representative in County Antrim, it gives me great pleasure to speak to you on the 75th anniversary of the victory against the Japanese. Yet again, we find ourselves in uncertain times, but with the powers of modern technology, it is wonderful that we are still able to come together virtually to commemorate this historic anniversary of the end of the Second World War. 3 months have passed since we joined in the act of commemoration and thanksgiving for the victory in France. On the 15th of August 1945, His Majesty the King addressed the nation once again, and he spoke of how, and I quote, "We then rejoiced that peace had returned to Europe, but we knew that a strong and relentless enemy still remained to be conquered in Asia. None could tell how long or how heavy would prove the struggle that still awaited us. Mercifully, the nation ended up coming together again in celebration relatively quickly. However, victory over Japan would come at a heavy price. Fighting in the Asia-Pacific conflict took place on a scale unseen in Europe. His Majesty the King said of the British and Commonwealth Fighting Force, the 14th Army, "They fought side by side with our allies and representatives of almost every unit in our great community. They fought in brotherhood. Through their courage and endurance, they conquered." The descendants of many of the Commonwealth veterans of that army are today part of the multicultural communities around the world, a lasting legacy to the success and comradeship of those who fought in the Asia-Pacific. As the commemorations continue in the coming days to mark the 75th anniversary of VJ Day, we pay tribute to the tens of thousands of service personnel from across the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth who fought and died in the war against the Japanese. We must also remember the 140,000 prisoners of war who were held and suffered under the Japanese. It's important that they remain at the heart of the commemoration, and we thank them for their service and sacrifice. His Majesty the King also said on this day in 1945, "So let us join in thanking Almighty God that war has ended throughout the world, and that in every country men may now turn their industry, skill and science to repairing its frightful devastation and to building prosperity and happiness." As we continue to fight COVID-19, those final words of His Majesty are as relevant today as they were then. May you stay safe and well, and may we always remember the sacrifices of those who have laid down their lives for our freedom. God save the Queen.
As Mayor of Antrim and Newtownabbey, I'm proud to lead our borough today, Saturday 15th of August 2020, in celebrating the 75th anniversary of victory in Japan, which marked the end of the terrible conflict known as the Second World War. Back on the 8th of May 2020, we marked VE Day 75, the anniversary of the end of this war in Europe in May 1945. However, many thousands of armed forces personnel were still fighting a bitter war in the Far East. Fighting in the Asia-Pacific took place from Hawaii to northeast India. Britain and the Commonwealth's principal fighting force, the 14th Army, was one of the most diverse in history. More than 40 languages were spoken and all the world's major religions represented. Japan surrendered on 15th of August 1945, which finally ended the Second World War. Nations all over the world rejoiced at arrival of peace, but the cost in terms of lives before this date was huge, and it is only right that today we recognise that sacrifice and remember them on this 75th anniversary. The Council had planned a range of commemorative activities and events to mark VE Day 75, which were unfortunately all cancelled as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. With restrictions on gatherings still in place, we are marking VJ Day 75 in a similar way, with a limited number of activities and a virtual programme. This virus remains a common enemy across all nations of the world and represents our greatest collective challenge since the Second World War. I ask you to reflect today on all those who have lost their lives to this disease and pay tribute to the frontline modern day warriors, our amazing NHS staff, key workers and our community volunteers who supported us all through the last few difficult months of lockdown. I will now read a couple of lines from the American poet John Anthony Carradine. On the tallest day in time, the dead came back. Clouds met us in the pastures past a world. By short waves, the releases of Iraq exploded on the Interphone's new word. Halfway past Iwa, we jettisoned to sea our gift of bombs like tears, and tears like bombs, to spring a frolic fountain daintily out of the blue metallic seas of doom. No fire-shot cloud pursued us going home. No cities cringed and wallowed in the flame, for out to sea a blank millennium changed us alive and left us still the same. In these words we can feel the elation of the soldiers, far from home, but still amongst the brutal theatre of war, and recognising how the world had changed utterly around them. Today we long for that elation we will feel when the threat of this virus subsides and we can emerge into the light of a new normal. Thank you.